You know, there's this funny ad on TV, because I think it's an ad for DirecTV, where a woman keeps turning between one of those housewives reality shows and a football game, and ultimately they blend together so that the housewives are playing football. It's pretty funny. But I had a similar experience watching the solemn funeral of Queen Elizabeth and then flashing to this movie on Amazon Prime called Samaritan, starring Sylvester Stallone. The movie gets a 40% from the critics, 73% from real people. It's watchable. It's a watchable picture, but it's a goofy, simplistic little picture. But it grabbed me because I thought it caught at something in the culture, and something that has to do with why people are so stunned and so deeply in mourning over Queen Elizabeth, and something that the left hates because of the subtext I was speaking about before. And the subtext of Samaritan is this search that I feel that the culture is in for what it means to be a good man. And Sylvester Stallone has always understood what the culture was looking for and what the elites hated. And I want to explore that for a minute. I want to talk again about the Queen, the symbolic life that she was living, a life lived into its supernatural meaning. She embodied the nation. She embodied duty. She embodied faith, as opposed to a life lived into the self, like Edward VIII, her uncle, who abdicated the throne for the woman I love, and Meghan Markle, who said, I want to be me, 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 right? The symbolic life is always sacrificial, because you're sacrificing something of your own personal desires to incarnate an idea, maybe the idea of truth and beauty. George Washington used his life. He gave up an empire to incarnate the idea of liberty. And you can see how powerful that is. George Washington shaped the first 200 years of this country. And it's only now that we're losing touch with who he was and what he did. And I write about in The Truth and Beauty, I wrote about that Jesus, his life was the metaphor for God. It was the incarnation of God in life, so that everything he did had meaning, but it was also itself. Shakespeare writes about this in the wonderful scene in Henry V, when he's waiting on the night before Agincourt. He's outnumbered, he's going to be slaughtered, everybody's going to die, and he realizes that all this responsibility falls on his shoulders while his soldiers are asleep. And his faith is shaken, and he starts to say, what makes a king? All it is ceremony. Here's a brief clip from the great Kenneth Branagh film, 20.
Let us our lives, our souls, our debts, our careful wives, our children, and our sins lay on the king. We must bear all. Oh, hard condition. Twin born with greatness, subject to the breath of every fool. What infinite heart's ease must kings neglect that private men enjoy? And what have kings that privates have not too, save ceremony? And what art thou idle ceremony? What drinkst thou oft instead of homage sweet, but poisoned flattery? Oh, be sick, great greatness, and bid thy ceremony give thee cure.
So Henry V here is a great movie, by the way, one of the best. Henry V here is losing faith. He's afraid, his people are going to be wiped out. He's outnumbered. And he says, all of this is just ceremony. That's what, the ceremony flatters me and everybody thinks I'm the king. So all the responsibility of the king falls on my shoulders. But of course, by the end of the play, he has lived into that ceremony. He has lived into the image of the great king and becomes a great king by doing that. So the artist understands that, there's a meaning there, and understands that wonderful human moment where he goes out to give his soldiers a little touch of Harry in the night and realizes that he's alone, that they are sleeping soundly, but he is awake waiting for what goes on. So you hear all these people saying, well, why should we Americans care about Queen Elizabeth? We hate monarchy. We overthrew the monarchy, and that is right. But the American idea does not dismiss the fact that people can live symbolic lives, can live into the meaning of life, rather into the flesh of life. That doesn't dismiss that. What it does is it says that everyone can do this. This is the famous scene from Huck Finn that I'm constantly quoting, where Huck Finn says he is willing to go to hell to free his friend Jim from slavery because of love. And that is Huck Finn, this little nobody, little tramp, essentially, embodying something so noble that it is just incredibly dramatic. And this is where we get the tragedy, 1949, by Arthur Miller, The Death of a Salesman. It's about a not very nice guy, a kind of low-level salesman, traveling salesman, who cheats on his wife, and he's not a noble person, and he starts to go a little bit crazy, and he's going to lose his position. And his wife, in one of the great speeches in American theater, a speech that moves me to tears every time I hear it, says, you know, he matters. I know he's a nobody, but he matters himself. Here's this famous speech from Death of the Salesman, cut 21.
I don't say he's a great man. Willie Loman never made a lot of money. His name was never in the papers. He's not the finest character that ever was. But he's a human being. And a terrible thing is happening. So attention must be paid. He's not to be allowed to fall into his grave like an old dog. Attention. Attention must finally be paid to such a person.
That famous line, attention must be paid to such a person, is basically saying I'm writing a tragedy about a person who's not a king, because every person has this dignity. It's the essential Christian idea. And this is the idea that the left hates, because they hate every person. They want the elites to be in charge of everything. They despise you. They despise everybody who disagrees with them. And this is why Sylvester Stallone is an actually important figure in the American cinema. Now, many of you know me as the Lord of the Multiverse, so you would expect me to get a lot more respect than I do. The reason I don't is because I just don't go around bragging about being a Lord. But you should. That's what you should do. I should go around, and the way you do that is you go to Established Titles. Established Titles is your opportunity to earn the title of Lord or Lady and get the respect you deserve. All you need is a 1 square foot plot of land in Scotland. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. In your title pack, you'll be bestowed with at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, plus an official certificate with a crest. I have one. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Titles packs from Established Titles are a fun and unique gift for any occasion, and there are even couple packs that come with adjoining plots of land for the special someone in your life. With your certificate, you could officially add the prefix of Lord or Lady to your credit cards, plane tickets, and even your dating profiles. And get this, Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my exclusive link will receive a plot within a few walking minutes of mine. Established Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Klavan, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/Klavan to get your gifts now and help support the channel. You can't be Lord of the Multiverse, but you can be Lord of a plot of ground in Scotland if you know how to spell Klavan. And by the way, it's Klavan. He's easy to make fun of because of that voice, where he talks that voice, but he's actually a talented writer, an intelligent man. And in 1976, he made the picture Rocky. Right now, it's a classic picture. And the famous scene, he's going to fight this kind of Muhammad Ali character, a knockoff Apollo Creed, and he realizes that he's not good enough to beat him. He's not going to win. He's going to get the crap beat out of him because Apollo Creed is a great, great fighter, and he's just a palooka from the streets. And he goes to Adrian, his girlfriend, and he tells her that even though he can't win, he can do something. And here's that speech, cut 22.
It really don't matter if I lose this fight. It really don't matter if this guy opens my head either. Because all I want to do is go the distance. Nobody's ever gone the distance with Creed. And if I can go that distance, you see, and that bell rings and I'm still standing. I'm gonna know for the first time in my life, see, that I weren't just another bum from the neighborhood.
So the famous line from the picture is, he goes the distance. If he can go the distance and his life has meaning, he's not just somebody. He represents something. He represents endurance. He represents the strength of the ordinary man. He represents the courage of the ordinary man. And of course, the New York Times, Vincent Canby was the snooty reviewer for the New York Times, and he hated this picture. And he says, by making the Ali-like fighter such a dope, the film explores areas of latent racism, of course. And we're asked to believe that Rocky is compassionate, interesting, even heroic, even though the character we see is simply an unconvincing actor imitating a lug. Well, big surprise, the people loved this film. They gave it won the Oscar, and Stallone won the Oscar. He was fantastic, and it made his life, made his career. He was doing sequels of it forever. And it did have something to do with race in the American sense of saying, yeah, you know, black people in this country have suffered, but everybody suffers. All God's children have problems, right? And this guy has his dignity too. And we can't just say, oh, we're going to replace one with the other. We have to give that dignity to everybody. That's basically what he was saying. But the hatred that they had for Rocky was nothing compared to the hatred they had for Rambo. That started with a movie called First Blood by David Morrell, a great guy and a great thriller writer. You heard when we had Terminalist author Jack Carr. He was listing the guys who made him a writer. One of them was David. And so the First Blood Rambo movie was based on David's novel, but then he made First Blood 2, and this was his reaction to the loss of America's loss in Vietnam and the attack on the people who fought in Vietnam, who were called baby killers and the agents of fascism and all the rest of the stuff that the left always deals. And Stallone struck back again and basically said, no, they had dignity. In the sequel, Rambo's in prison for the stuff he did in the first movie. And his commanding officer comes to him and he says he wants him to go in and free the POWs, which was a big cause at the time, that there were still people stuck overseas. And this is Rambo's response. He's in prison, and this is his response, cut 23.
The next time we meet, it'll be in Thailand with the Special Ops designate who haunts the operation.
Yes, sir.
All clear?
Yes,
John, I want you to know that I did what I could to keep you out of here.
I know.
Yeah.
Sir, do we get to win this time?
This time it's up to you.
Great line. Do we get to win this time? This time it's up to you. It's not up to the government. It's not going to be the government who retreats. The people, the soldiers, are going to do the job, the ordinary guy. And if that didn't drive the left crazy, the end of the movie did. There's nothing subtle about Stallone. Stallone knows exactly who he's talking to. He's not talking to the literary elites. He's not talking to the country club. He's not talking to the critics. He's talking to his audience, the people. And so he just spells it out. This is the end of Rambo, is after he's absolutely decimated everything and freed the POWs, cut 24.
The war, everything that happened here may be wrong, but damn it, don't hate your country for it.
Hey, I die for it.
And what is it you want?
I want what they want. And every other guy who came over here and spilt his guts and gave everything he had once for our country to love us as much as we love it.
So he's telling you basically, they love the country because it's a country of freedom, but you can't love freedom if you don't love the people who are going to be free. And that's the thing, and they hate him. And Vincent Canby, once again, just jumped on this picture, said it was bubble-headed, it was terrible. And the ultimate insult from the left is always the ultimate insult from the left. He says to anyone who doesn't share the camera's adoration of Mr. Stallone's torso, this sort of behavior becomes so comic that Rambo turns into something of a camp classic. So if you like this movie, you're gay. That is always the final insult from the left. If you admire manly individualism, you must be gay. Now, my point is simply that Stallone has made a career of understanding the meaning of lives that elites despise. That he has made his career doing that. And can he be corny? Can he overdo it? Yes, he can. But still, it gives the people inspiration because it says you too can represent something, which is why I was so taken with this second-rate, third-rate film. I mean, Stallone is now an older guy. He's doing this film called Samaritan on Amazon Prime. And it's the story of two twins born with super strength. Here's a little bit of the trailer, cut 19.
Let me start at the beginning. They were freakishly strong. They unintentionally hurt people. The residents of the town grew to fear the brothers. They waited until the family slept, boarded up their home, and set it on fire. The parents were burned alive, but the twins were unscathed. Samaritan grew to fight for justice, to be a protector. Nemesis, consumed by revenge, wanted the world to suffer as his parents had. Samaritan tried to contain his brother's fury, so Nemesis forged a powerful weapon, a hammer that he poured all his hate and rage into. It was the only thing that could destroy Samaritan.
Twin brothers, a good one and a bad one, fighting for the city. And the minute I saw this, I knew every beat of the story, not because it was so corny, although it is a kind of corny, but simply because I know that the culture is looking for an answer to this question: what is a good man? And the problem is we can't find that answer until we understand what is a good woman, because a woman and a man become one flesh and a full person only when they come together. And the whole point is this monarchical idea that the king represents the nation becomes the American idea that each of us represents the nation. So each of us has to find that meaning. It's that meaning that the left hates. Leftism is a materialist idea. It has been from the very beginning. It is the idea that there is no spirit in history. There are just material forces, money being among them, but also power, that are played off each other until full justice blossoms and we live in utopia. It's all a lie. It is all a lie. And even though, and Stallone understands this, and he's talking to each person, as good American artists have been doing from the beginning, saying, what will your life mean? What will you represent? You are the king. You are the king. Now give your life meaning. It's a beautiful message. And when we find the answer to that question, what a good man is, the culture will come back. If you want more Klavan-y goodness, and you so do, like and subscribe, and also please subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.